Hi guys and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Rhoda and I make videos on personal development, community and the world and our responsibility in it. Through whatever I do, I always want to give value to you, and today I want to talk about a topic that I feel like not many people talk about, and that is having healthy boundaries. Having healthy boundaries in our friendships, having healthy boundaries in our relationships, having healthy boundaries in life in general. To begin, I would like you to imagine your house. Imagine the door to your house. The door is open only to let certain people in and to keep others out. When somebody rings the doorbell, we always check who's out there, and only if we know the person, only if we are comfortable with that person, we let them in. At night, our door is locked shut. There are multiple methods to keep that door locked so that no intruder enters the house. Where we are so diligent to protect our house, we are very lax in protecting our own selves. I don't want to get into the reasons why we don't protect ourselves, but let's talk about how we can protect ourselves, because just like a house that is in need of protection, our lives, our hearts, our bodies, our souls are in need of protection. Our lives are shaped by our choices. It is shaped by what we say yes to and what we say no to, what we allow into our life and what we stop from entering into our lives. And that is where boundaries come in. The boundaries in our life set that limit for us, telling us that if you cross over, someone is going to get hurt, and more often than not, that someone is you. One of the first boundaries that is important for all of us to set for ourselves is mental boundaries. What are we allowing into our mind? Are we conscious about what are we allowing into our minds? What are we consuming on the television? What are we consuming via social media? What are we consuming by our conversations with people? What are we consuming through the books that we are reading? There's a lot of consumption happening, but are we conscious about what exactly is coming into our lives? Are we looking through that peephole and seeing, is this something that I really want in my life? There's a saying that you are what you eat. Whatever you put into your body is who you are. Similarly, you are what you consume. And if it is something that is not adding value to your life, if it's something that is draining you, then we need to rethink about the boundaries we have set for ourselves. This is not just about what's good and what's bad. I think we sometimes get lost in that. We think this is good, this is not something that is morally bad, and so it's okay if I consume it, but this is bad so I shouldn't consume it. I think there can be something that is not necessarily bad, but it can be bad for you. So you need to know what triggers you, what affects you, what drains you, and accordingly set limits for yourself in those areas. Let me give you an example. Now, I have a friend of mine who lost a family member recently. Her way of processing that death was by posting a lot on social media about it, posting her thoughts, posting what she's feeling, and that was her process. Now, there's nothing inherently wrong with that. That's her way of grieving, and that's completely fine. But I noticed that after a while, looking at those posts, looking at whatever she was sharing, started affecting me and bringing me down. Maybe it was because I have personally also lost a family member. Maybe it was because I am a very sensitive person, and sadness and death and all these things make me think a lot, and I kind of go down a rabbit hole. So all of these things started affecting me, and I realized that very soon, and I decided that I might need to mute her for the time being. Now, there was nothing wrong in what she was doing, right? But there is also nothing wrong in me muting her, knowing that it was affecting me. When you are focused on building a life which will bring out the best in you, you need to be conscious about what is it that is adding to my life and what is it that's not. Make sure you surround yourself with goodness. Make sure you surround yourself with wisdom. Make sure you surround yourself with positivity. Make sure you surround yourself with things that are good to think about, things that are valuable, things that are noble, things that are true. Those are things that add value to your life and don't take away value from your life. The second type of boundary that we need to set is emotional boundaries. Emotional boundaries allow us to separate another person's emotions from our emotions. Many a times we have the tendency to take on the emotions of another person on ourselves, especially if we are very close to that person. This happens a lot when you're in a relationship or when you are in a friendship, a close friendship, where we tend to mirror another person's emotions. If that person is sad, we become sad. If that person is upset, we become upset. If that person is happy, we become happy. However, that is like giving control of your house to someone else. It's like giving your house key to some random person on the street and telling them you do whatever you want with it. Just to clarify, I'm not saying that you shouldn't empathize with another person. Empathy is a quality that is really, really good to have. But that also doesn't mean that you take on the emotion of another person in the process of empathizing with them. Just because we love someone, it's very easy to take on their pain. This leads to a lot of unhealthy dependency issues that can happen because you start behaving like one unit instead of two separate individual people. If you notice that happening to you, take a step back and see where exactly those boundaries are getting blurred. The third type of boundary is physical boundaries. Now, physical boundaries relate to our body, our privacy, our personal space. Who is it that we are allowing into our personal space? Just like in a house, we have a screening process. We allow only those who we know to come into our house, those who we trust to come into our house. Are we doing the same with our bodies, with our personal space? A lot of the boundaries that are shared with us by people who have gone before us, people who have experienced before us, is because they know the consequences of breaching those boundaries. They know that these boundaries are meant to protect us, and if we don't have it in place, we are going to get hurt. And we see those rules, we see those regulations, we see those suggestions, and our first instinct is to push the limits, to see how far we can go without breaking the rules. Let me place this example in front of your mind. If you're driving up a hill, if you go up a hill with those narrow, winding roads, you know that there are boundaries on the hill. There's either a line drawn on the sides, or there is like these small boulders that are kept, or there might be a wall telling you that if you cross this, you're going to fall down, and it's a steep fall. So when we have that boundary, when we know that that's the boundary, do we drive our car as close as possible to the edge? Do we think to ourselves, let's push to the edge as much as possible and see how far I go or I can go without falling over? Do we do that? No. We try to stay as far as possible from that line, from that edge, because we know that if we go closer, there is a possibility that by mistake we can fall down. By mistake, anything can happen. So we see that boundary and we stay as far away from it as possible because we know the consequences if we have a misstep. In the same way, when it comes to other boundaries, are we thinking about pushing the limit? Are we thinking about, let's try this and see what happens? Let's go as close to the boundary as possible before I hurt myself. When we have the option of protecting ourselves, protecting our hearts, protecting our bodies, protecting our souls and our minds, why would we not want to protect ourselves? Yes, setting boundaries is not easy. Setting boundaries takes effort to first think about what those boundaries need to be and then communicating it to the other person or to the other people so that they understand your boundaries too. But I think in the long run, the benefits definitely outweigh anything else. As I said in the beginning of this video, our choices define who we are going to be. That includes our boundaries. The boundaries we set do protect us from hurt, do protect us from pain, do protect us from unnecessary hardship. Take the time to think about Where in your life are boundaries not set? And there can be boundaries apart from what I've shared today. These are the three main ones that I wanted to talk about. But there might be other boundaries that you feel you need to set for yourself. The promises you make to yourself are also important because, as my dad likes to say, you are most responsible for yourself. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video, and I'll see you next week.